Hello everyone, welcome back. We've been going through the different origin stories in Dragon Age Origins, and so far we've done the Human Noble and the City Elf. Today we're getting into the Dalish Elf origin, and we will be discussing like how this origin affects gameplay as you go throughout the game. However, there are a few things to discuss first, and one of those are something called the Vaseline, and it's basically just tattoos that you can get on your character. The Dalish Elves all get tattoos when they come of age, and it basically represents what their role in the community will be, and which god they tend to favor amongst the Elven pantheon. So one of the gods that actually never gets represented in this, or at least as far as I've seen in any of the games, is a god Fen'Harel, and that is like the trickster god. So there's reasons for that, and we can get more into that in later games, but for this game it's not as relevant. So in this game there's a series of 16 different tattoos that you can get, starting with tattoos that represent the god June, which is a craftsmaker. These two, it's variations of the same tattoo, and each of the gods represented will have two tattoos representing them. So that's the first one. I'm just sticking with that basic dark color. It's easier to see on this character. So then the next tattoo that comes up is Elgernon. There's two of them. There's the variation. Elgernon is the god of vengeance and the god of the sun. So then this tattoo, this one is for Falandine, and that is like the god of the dead essentially. There's two variations again. Then this one is the god of the hunt, Andril. I don't know if I said that properly. Again, the pronunciation isn't exactly my strong suit in this, but yeah, so there's the variation again. In my opinion, it kind of looks like a bow. Maybe that's by design, but especially since it is the god of the hunt, it makes sense to me. So then this one should be Soleil's, and the distinct feature that makes me think that this is the Soleil's god are these arches at the top here, and the fact that the arches are over top of a flame. So this god in the Elven lore is the Hearthkeeper. Then the next set of tattoos is this one, and I'm not 100% sure on this one because this one and the last set of tattoos are a little bit tricky, at least for me, to decipher, but I believe that this is for Gillanane, and that is the mother. So it represents virtues that correspond with what you would think of when you think of like a motherly figure. Then Durthaman. This is the Keeper of Secrets. And finally, Mythal. And Mythal is the one that I found a little bit hard to decipher in whether this is Mythal or the one that I said was Gillanane was Mythal. And the reason that I think that last one is Mythal and not this one are because of comparing it to the tattoos that you can find in later games. That they changed the tattoos a bit, and in my opinion This one looks more similar to Mythal's series than the other one. So I could be wrong on that, but that's my opinion. So these last two, Mythal, and these two, Gillinane. So we're going to be playing as a warrior this time around, and for that reason I'm going to go with Falandine. It doesn't really matter which tattoo. Usually I just pick a tattoo based on like how it looks, like whether or not you want it on your character, but for the sake of consistency we're just going to go with this. And then the stats don't matter all that much, although if you're playing a warrior and you want to be using a shield, dexterity is important. So that's why I'm getting the dexterity. I'm going to be using a shield this time around. Our city elf that we played through on, we were using dual wielding, and that one uses a lot of dexterity as well. But this time I wanted to go with shield. Now the game is trying to push me towards using a bow, which is possible, but I don't care. So we're going to go with a shield. And I'll go with those two, maybe, or not. That one's important to have because it helps you hit more accurately, so more often, I suppose. So we're going to get started right away, and you'll see instantly tensions between the elves and humans once again, just like in the City Elf origin. However, the tensions are due to
You were
different
born
reasons.
amidst the Dalish Elves, noble wanderers who refused to join the society of humans that subjugated their homeland so long ago. The Dalish travel the land in tightly knit clans, struggling to maintain their half-forgotten lore in a human world that fears and despises them. You spend your time hunting with your clanmate Tamlin in the forests, and as is sometimes the case, your quarry is not always the local wildlife.
It's a Dalish!
And you three are somewhere you shouldn't be.
Let us pass, Elf. You have no right to stop us.
No? We will see about that, won't we? You're just in time. I found these humans lurking in the bushes. Bandits, no doubt.
We aren't bandits, I swear. Please don't hurt us.
You Shemlin are pathetic. It's hard to believe you ever drove us from our homeland.
We've never done nothing to you, Dalish. We didn't even know this forest was yours.
This forest isn't ours, fool. You've stumbled too close to our camp. You Shems are like vermin. We can't trust you not to make mischief. What do you say, Lethalon? What should we do with them?
So to stick with the idea that we don't like humans, I'm gonna make it so that my character really does not like them. And we're gonna go with kill them, what do I care? The others will never know.
I like the sound of that. Anything to say in your defense, Shems?
Look, we didn't come here to be trouble. We just found a cave.
Yes, a cave. With ruins like I've never seen. We thought there might be,
Treasure? So you're more akin to thieves than actual bandits.
We know this forest. There are caves, but no ruins. You lie.
But I have proof. Here, we found this just inside the entrance.
This stone has carvings. Is this Elvish? Written Elvish?
There's more in the ruins. We didn't get very far in, though.
How do you know that's Elvish, Tamlin?
I've seen something similar on the Keeper's scrolls. And this is all you found? Why didn't you look for more?
There was a demon. It was huge with black eyes. Thank the Maker we were able to outrun it.
A demon. Where is this cave?
Just off the west, I think. There's a cave in the rock face and a huge hole just inside.
Well, do you trust them? Shall we let them go?
Nah. So they can bring a mob out to drive us? Or to drive us out, rather. Kill them all.
Yes. One could expect no less from a Shem. This will not take long.
No.
Well, shall we see if there's any truth to this story? These carvings make me curious.
The ironic thing about our decision to kill all three of them there is that we supposedly are killing them in order to prevent them from telling anyone about our camp. However, we'll later and shortly find out that the bodies of these three are found by a nearby human village. And now it doesn't give us that information that there's a nearby human village when the game starts. You could, I guess, gather that there might be something nearby, just the fact that there's adventurers coming into the woods. But we're not given that information outright, and we do find out that someone finds the bodies, and because of that, the whole campsite is under threat. Now, that happens, like, our campsite becomes under threat regardless of whether or not you kill the three humans. So, it doesn't really impact things too much. But, there you go. Shouldn't we inform the keeper?
She might be interested in these carvings, but let's see if there's anything more before we get excited. Besides, we're already here. Now, they said it was to the west.
So the keeper is like the leader of our clan. Usually the keeper, I've never seen one that isn't, but the keeper is usually a mage. And they're considered someone who has like a lot of knowledge, and someone you go to for advice at different times, and that sort of thing. So usually there's the keeper and an apprentice to the keeper. So the apprentice is someone who is training to be a keeper in the future, or that sort of thing. And I want to be using the shield and sword, so we can switch over to that. There we go. And because I didn't get like an ability, I'm not doing quite as much damage, but I could be considered to be doing more damage just because of the precise striking. If you don't have precise striking, when you try to attack things, you're going to be missing quite a bit. So I'll be clicking on all of this stuff that has like potential codices, but I'm going to ignore loot for the most part. However, when you are going through the game normally, you're going to want to pick up any of these herbs that you find, like elf root and death root and all that fun stuff. Pick up everything.
This must be the cave. I don't recall seeing this before, do you?
The reason you want to pick up everything is because later in the game, all of the stuff that you pick up, well, a lot of it anyway, it's like herbs, runes, gold, that sort of thing, can be used to boost the stats on an army that you'll have with the Grey Wardens towards the end of the game to fight the Archdemon. And it does affect their strength, so especially if you're on like a harder difficulty, it's going to become all the more important that you do that. Because if you have weak troops, they die really fast, especially on the harder difficulties, and it'll make getting through the final encounter incredibly difficult. So, just a heads up there. I don't think we should go in alone.
There's nobody else here, and I'm not running back for help unless there's something worth making a fuss over. Come on, let's at least see what's there. How dangerous could it be?
So he's fairly arrogant, and we technically shouldn't listen to him, but we are going to anyway, and you don't really have a choice to say no and go back to camp. Oh, actually, while I'm in this screen, I should talk about the professions here. These three: trap making, herbalism, and poison making. So those are important for a town called Lothering, and you will encounter Lothering earlier in the game. It's literally one of the first places that you go to outside of your origin story. So you'll have the origin story, then you'll go fight Darkspawn at Ostagar with the king, and then that sets the tone for the rest of the game. And from there, you'll end up going to a small town called Lothering. In Lothering, there's a series of different quests that are profession specific, so you have to have a character in your party that has one of the professions in order to accept each of the quests. So there's one on herbalism, one on poison making, and one on trap making. Now, the characters that join your party as you go, they will end up having herbalism and poison making just naturally. However, none of the characters that join your party have trap making to start with. So if you want to be able to get that trap making quest, you'll either have to get trap making on your main character or give trap making to one of the side characters that you'll have in your party before you get to Lothering. Now, there is a way to get around that somewhat by not proceeding to actually complete any of the zones outside of Lothering until you get to a level where you have trap making on at least one of your characters. So if you don't have trap making with your main character and you still want to be able to do that quest, you'd have to basically level up a bit to the point where you have an extra slot and then put that extra slot into trap making on either your main character or one of the others. And that's only if you want to do that quest. Now, is the quest worth it? In my opinion, no. Like, every time I've played through this, I don't even bother unless I decide for some reason that I want to go with trap making on the character I'm playing. Usually the only time that I would even consider doing that is if I'm playing a warrior, and which seems like a weird combination in some ways, but it can be useful. So I'm going with trap making. It won't make any difference for this playthrough because we're not actually going to go to Lothering or do any of that stuff. Alright, so let's go into the ruins. One thing to mention about ruins is a lot of the ruins that you find around Ferelden are of Tevinter
Looks like
make.
the Shem was telling the truth, but these ruins look more human than elven.
So Tevinter is actually an old human empire. It used to rule all of Ferelden and all of Orlais, basically the entirety of southern Thedas, where Dragon Age Origins takes place, and where even the other Dragon Age games take place, in all honesty. So Tevinter is way up north from where we are currently. It's even further north than the Free Marches, which is where you are in Dragon Age 2. So Tevinter, at one point in the past, had come down south and conquered all of the south. They took the lands away from the elves and put a lot of the elves into slavery. Then there was like a rebellion to get all the elves out of slavery, and that was successful to an extent, but not to the extent that it benefited the elves much, because it still ended up being humans in rule, and a lot of the elves that remained in the human society were just thrown into alienages instead of outright slavery. And as you would know from going through the City Elf origin, the alienages are not much better, at least not in Ferelden, and from the sounds of it, probably not in Orlais either, although Orlais would probably be a little bit better depending on your perspective on it, just based on conversations that you have with Leliana and other characters that come from that region, and also playing through Dragon Age Inquisition. But Ferelden specifically, alienages are not great, and so it's alienages and the Dalish. And as we'll find out by playing the Dalish here, we find out that the City Elves and the Dalish in Ferelden do not get along at all. They have like nothing in common. They want nothing to do with each other. The Dalish in particular feel like the City Elves are no better than humans, and they hate humans to begin with, so it's just not a great relationship all around. Now, that's somewhat contradicted in Dragon Age 2, because you end up seeing that the elves in the city in Dragon Age 2 have very good ties with the Dalish, and not only that, but the Dalish come and visit on a regular basis and are well respected by the City Elves and all that, so it completely breaks that consistency until you realize that it's in a completely different country. So that is an important factor to keep in mind when you're trying to compare the two games, because we are currently in Ferelden, and all of Dragon Age Origins takes place in Ferelden, so we're only used to the culture of Ferelden, and cultures change from country to country, whether you're elf or human or dwarf or anything. Now, the dwarves are somewhat unique in that aspect, just because, as far as we know, there are only 2 dwarven cities left in all of Thedas, and Thedas is the setting of the Dragon Age games. So, yeah, there's only 2 dwarven cities left, and it's because their once vast kingdom underground was basically destroyed. And there are a number of reasons for that, but we're not going to get into that here. And in fact, it doesn't even come up much in the games so far. It just is mostly hinted at, and it's all because a lot of that stuff happened a really long time in the past. So long ago that there aren't really many records dating back that far, as far as we know. So, like a typical dungeon, we have to fight spiders and all that. So, quick reminder, all of the creatures that you'll encounter in this game specifically, like spiders, dogs, dragons, all that sort of thing, they have the ability to tackle your character, knock them down, and like basically chew on your face for a bit. And you can get around that by having a high strength score and a high constitution score. Those 2 stats combined help you to avoid being knocked down or grappled by any enemy characters. Strength specifically, for the dog that you can potentially have in your own party, will increase your dog's ability to knock enemy creatures down. So that's a convenient and fun kind of fact. I'm stuck. Now, for some reason when I opened that door I actually thought there'd be a mage over there. It might be when you come back to this area at another point in the game. There's a couple of instances where you come back to these ruins. Both, even during this this origin story, you end up coming back here, and it's because something happens while we're here that'll send us back to camp, and then we end up having to come back to find out exactly what happened, and you'll see very soon. But then later in the game, you do end up coming back again,
I can't believe
or at least
this.
to similar places.
You recognize this statue, don't you?
It's worn, but it looks vaguely familiar.
Back when our people lived in Arlathan, statues like these honored the creators. When the Shems enslaved us, much of that lore was lost. This looks like human architecture, with the statue of our people. Can these ruins date back to the time of Arlathan?
Alright, so Arlathan is a confusing subject, especially if you compare it with this game and with Dragon Age Inquisition, which is the third game in the series. But basically, Arlathan is a region, a vague, not descriptive region where the elves used to rule prior to Tevinter coming and taking everything over. However, in this game, there's a couple of characters that refer to Arlathan as specifically a city. So when it's referred to as, since it's referred to as a city in this game, and it's also referred to as like the land where the elves came from in future games, that sort of thing. Plus, because of some major plot points that happen in the Inquisition, I'm not going to discuss that here, but because of that, it leads me to believe that they're referring to the same place. So the city and the general land are the same place. And what I think it's referring to is what the Chantry, which is another religion in this world, refers to as the Black City or the Golden City. Now, in Chantry lore, it was the Golden City first, and it became the Black City after some humans human mages rather, tried to get to the city. So the city, even before it was called the Black City, it was always something that was not permitted access to for any living creature, any living being, and that includes any of the demons or spirits. So from the perspective of the Chantry, the Golden City is like the first place where creation happened, and their god, who they call the Maker, created the first life there. Now that first life ended up being like the demons and spirits of the Fade. However, the Fade didn't exist at the time. He ended up creating the Fade and creating the realm of the living, which we are in currently, once he became disappointed with his own creation. And his disappointment came basically from their lack of creativity and their lack of being able to conceive of things for themselves. So he gave them their own place as a sort of punishment. Now, this is all super vague detail. It could be way more complex than this, but I don't want to spend too long talking about the subject. So basically they were banished, and he created the humans and the elves and dwarves and all that in the realm of the living, and separated the two, but neither of them are tied to the Golden City or the Black City, depending on your perspective. Now, the Golden City became the Black City once the human mages tried to go to the Golden City, according to Chantry lore at least. And when they tried to go there, they were punished, and it created the first darkspawn and originated the blight, essentially. So there's been a number of different blights in this world's history, and it's been going on for over 1,000 years now. So yeah, it's happened quite a few times. And in the blight, there's something called the archdemon that essentially leads each of the blights, and they're essentially raised old gods that are raised from a deep slumber by the darkspawn in order to lead the darkspawn hordes on an assault on the world of the living. Now, if you compare some of those details with some of the details that we find out in Dragon Age Inquisition about the elves, it actually leads me personally to believe that the figure that the elves call Fen'Harel and the figure that the humans call the Maker are actually the same thing. Now, that's just my opinion. I haven't heard anyone else talk about that, but we'll get more into the details of like why I think that as we go through the games. But for now, it's interesting. So much of our past lost to us.
I'd never have guessed ancient elves might have lived here. With humans.
It's fighting time. So, in this place, once we go through that door, we're gonna encounter a demon. Now, all we've seen in this place are spiders, walking corpses, and once we go through the door, a demon. And then it's all tied to that mirror that you see in the middle of the room. That mirror is called Meridian. We don't actually find that out until a little bit later. You do find it out in this game, but it's not like a major plot point until you get into one of the DLC campaigns. And in Dragon Age 2, it's talked about a lot more.
What was that thing?
Another ability.
It's beautiful, isn't it? I wonder what the writing says.
No idea. Do not touch the glass?
Not that we'd leave a fingerprint on it. See how clean it is? Not a single smudge or crack. I wonder what this writing is for. Maybe this isn't... Hey, did you see that? I think something moved inside the mirror.
No, we didn't see it because we weren't paying attention. It didn't show us the mirror yet. But we will see something. Inside the mirror? You're imagining things.
No, it was right there. Wait, there it is again.
Yeah, so now we see what he saw.
Can you feel that? I think it knows we're here. I just need to take a closer look. It's showing me places. I can see some kind of city. Underground. And there's a great blackness. It saw me. Help! I can't look away!
So during that little sequence, you might have heard a deep booming voice in the background. That voice is very similar.
I am very sorry.
Similar to something that we heard in the Mage playthrough while we were in the Fade. One of the demons that we encountered in the Fade sounded a lot like that. So I don't know if anyone else is able to pick up on that, but if you do have a chance, try and listen for that voice and compare it to your playthrough of the Mage Origin.
You're awake.
You've the god's own luck, Lethalon. You're back at camp. Everyone is worried sick about you. How do you feel?
Fine, but a little groggy.
We thought you would die. The Shem who brought you here said there wasn't much hope. Seems he was wrong.
There was a human?
A Shem brought you back 2 days ago. You don't remember him?
I've been here for 2 days?
He was a Grey Warden and appeared out of nowhere with you slung over his shoulder. You were delirious with fever. He said that he found you outside a cave in the forest, unconscious and alone. He left you here and ran off again. The Keeper's been using the old magic to heal you.
Interesting. So, is anyone looking for Tamlin?
Of course. Most of the hunters are off looking for him right now. But the Keeper wanted to talk to you as soon as you awoke. Stay here. I'll get her.
I see you are awake, Dalish. It is fortunate Duncan found you when he did. I know not what dark power held you, but it nearly bled the life from you. It was difficult even for my magic to keep you alive.
I kept telling Tamlin we should have come back.
Do not worry, Dalish. Even I might have been intrigued enough by such a cave to explore it further. Duncan thought there may have been darkspawn creatures inside the cave. Is that true?
All I remember was the mirror.
A mirror. And it caused all this? I have never heard of such a thing in all the lore we have collected. I was hoping for answers when you woke, but there are only more questions. And Tamlin remains missing. He is more important than any lore in these ruins. If he is as sick as you were, his condition is grave. Duncan returned to the cave to search for Darkspawn, but we cannot rely on him to look for Tamlin as well. We must go ourselves, and quickly. Do you feel well enough to show us the way, Dalish? Without you, we will not find it.
I'm up for it, Keeper. I feel fine.
I am relieved to hear it. I am ordering the clan to pack the camp so we can go north. Take Merrill with you to the cave. Find Tamlin if you can, but do it swiftly.
The clan is leaving?
If there is any truth to what Duncan said, then Darkspawn may show up in these parts soon. We must get away from that horde. But that is not our only concern. Did you encounter any other humans out in the forest?
3 of them, but we killed them.
So I feared. You have stirred up a hornet's nest, Dalish. Their village blames us for your actions. As everywhere, our people are not welcome here. We have stayed too long, and we must move on, quickly.
You're gonna let those Shemlin drive us off?
Our clan could slaughter their entire village if we cared to, but at the cost of bringing their king's rage down on our heads. These people are simple and have simple fears. This is their land, so we will go peacefully.
Which is kind of ironic when you think about the history of the elves and how all of this land used to be ruled by the elves at one point. Okay. Why do you want me to take Merrill?
Merrill knows a degree of my magic. Tamlin's chances of surviving the journey back are greater with her help. I also wish for Merrill to see this cave and mirror. She has a sense for these things, and could shed light on the nature of this illness.
But doesn't Merrill risk getting ill as well?
You recovered, and Merrill will too. Still, be careful. Should you come upon this strange mirror again, do not touch it.
Take Merrill to the cave and find Tamlin. Understood.
Go quickly, for Tamlin's life hangs in the balance.
Pray for me, Keeper. Okay. So, the Keeper like I mentioned before, is the head of the clan. They're keeper of knowledge. They collect relics and lore and stories and knowledge and all that about the elves of the past, and they gather it and pass it down and share it with the tribe. Now, there is someone called a storyteller within the tribe that his or her sole role is for telling stories, and it's basically to share the verbal lore that they've passed down generation to generation. So there's a lot of that traditional um, oral method of delivering information or passing information down from generation to generation. So with that, it's important to keep in mind that words can be misconstrued over time, and it's easy because of that for things to be lost to the passage of time or misinterpreted. And there's no real way of finding out what's true without specific relics from the past or someone who actually lived back then. Now, we do find out that there are entities in the Dragon Age world that are old enough to have lived back then, but we won't find that out for quite a while. And before continuing on, I want to point out that this clan that we're in, this entire clan, and a lot of the prominent figures that we'll go around talking to, they are all featured in Dragon Age 2 quite heavily, because this clan, although we're in Ferelden at the moment, when the Keeper says that they're going north, they don't just stop at going north in Ferelden. They end up leaving Ferelden altogether and going to the Free Marches, which is like across a narrow sea to the north of Ferelden. So they not only go north, but they go so far north that they end up crossing the sea, and they cross to the sea to where they are at in Dragon Age 2. Now, Meryl is the Keeper's apprentice, and she'll be the Keeper's apprentice in Dragon Age 2 as well. But because of that, Meryl has like a lot of knowledge that most of the other elves don't have, and not only that, but both the Keeper and Meryl are mages. They have not only the regular sort of knowledge, but magical knowledge as well. And so we'll talk a little bit more about Meryl once we meet her, but we're gonna save meeting her until last. So she's way down here where the arrow is. So we have to talk with all these other people on the way down there. I guess before I end this episode, I'll talk to Fenrirel. I think that's how you say his name. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll talk with him, because if you say the right things, you can actually convince him to, or not really convince, but have him join your group. Now, you don't have to have him join your group, but for the sake of this playthrough, I'm going to have him join. Normally, when I go through this origin, I don't bother taking him with me. I just go with Meryl.
Is the Keeper sending you back to that cave to look for Tamlin?
Yes, I'm going with Meryl.
I want to go with you. Keeper Marathari probably won't approve, but I can help find Tamlin.
So this is where you can tell him to like stay behind if you want. But I'm gonna say, all right, come with us.
Good. I'll follow you, just to make sure Meryl doesn't go running to the Keeper when you tell her I'm coming.
Alright, there we go, our first party member. Now, when you come to a similar Dalish camp later in this game, it'll be a completely different clan, but it'll have like a lot of the same features. So it'll have like a keeper, a bunch of hunters, just generalized elves sitting around. There's like a merchant, a storyteller. Our storyteller is named Favel. That's him right there by the fire. The storyteller in the next Dalish camp that we'll encounter in this game is also standing by the fire. I think it's like a stereotypical type position to put him in, just to find him, because like, where do you expect to find a storyteller telling stories around the campfire? Of course. So there you go. I think we'll call it here for now, because I don't want to talk to Fable yet, because he has a considerable amount to say, and that may or may not take a while, particularly since it gets heavy into lore. It's a similar character to the librarian that you encounter in the human noble origin. So if you recall, in the human noble origin, there was a librarian that you go and talk to, and he goes through some of the history of your family, your noble family, and some of the human history of the area, and you have opportunity to share in telling the story to a group of people. Now, the same thing will happen with Fable here, but Fable is like a more in-depth version of it, because like even after you've finished with that initial conversation, you have the opportunity to ask a lot more about the lore of the elves, essentially, and talk to them about different stories that have, or yeah, different myths that we hold as Dalish. So like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.